And let's hear what Advocate Nthabiseng Sepanya-Mogale, who is the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, has to say on this tragic incident.
The implementation continues to be problematic. I think people are aware that chances of them being arrested, proper investigations and prosecution, and them being convicted and spending the time as per the conviction and sentence are actually very slim. Something is not right with the criminal justice system, the value chain, especially at the point where people are investigated, ultimately getting arrested, and finally being kept in prison for the time that they are sentenced for. The issue of the early release is one of the main reasons why the criminal justice system, especially at conviction, sentence, and incarceration stage, where it is undermined. People do know that if they get 15 years, which is minimum sentence for a murder of this nature, after 7 years, 7.5 years, they'll be back. We cannot have that. The parole system needs to be reviewed, and re-engineered.
And the reason I asked you that question is because every year when we hear of this kind of crime, we say we are shocked. But surely we shouldn't, given especially the circumstances around this particular matter. I mean, now there are a lot of questions as to how the suspect's employer, the SAPS, had allowed an officer within its ranks who had been accused of many abusive cases, we understand corruption, was allowed to own a firearm. And on the day of the shooting, he was also driving a state vehicle under the influence of alcohol. Some have also, of course, turned their focus on the community and her family in terms of why didn't they do enough? Could they not have also acted knowing that she was in an abusive relationship? As we begin to ask ourselves these questions, what do we then do as a society?
The family could have acted, but knowing the poor training that some police officers, especially those that have been in the police stations for long, which I suspect is what has been happening at El Dorado Park police station, they tend to not to observe the new measures that have been put in place. It is now legal that someone like that has their gun confiscated, but that depends on reporting. But when you report, it must actually be taken seriously as a crime. Domestic violence continues not to be taken seriously. The police officers continue to make it as though it's one of those nuisance matters that people bring forward to report to them. The other issue that we're seeing is that the police officers are not efficiently and effectively screening the kind of people who they recruit into their ranks. How is it that such an irresponsible person who would drive a state car drunk has actually been brought into those ranks? But how is it that somebody who is so abusive has not been assessed properly even before they are brought into the ranks? IPID is actually an after the fact process. There should be a very stringent process even before people are brought in, where the public comments and everyone else comes forward, even the families interviewed, psychological assessments are made, so that we end up recruiting very balanced and upstanding citizens from communities into the police ranks.
We just heard in that memorial service, MEC Lebogang Maile inviting all men in South Africa to attend the next court case or next court appearance of the man who is charged for her murder. He says that men must be at the forefront of GBV and not just stand on the sidelines of these cases. Oftentimes, what we have been seeing in most of these cases is many South African men standing with perpetrators or saying things like, not all men. What will it take, do you think, for men to stand up for and show up for children, young girls and women in the country?
I think that is a correct call for men to stand up. However, it should be one of the many things that are done. Because you must remember, when men stand up, it is when they stand up to condemn something that has happened. I think it must be a process where preventative measures are taken. Like I say, who goes into our systems as police officers? But all the sectors of society, your churches, your institutions of education, every sector of our society needs to start calling GBV for what it is, a form of violence, and therefore frowning upon it. It is still seen as a private matter, as a matter that two people can resolve. It is still seen as a matter that families can resolve. And we tend to take one thing at a time when we are dealing with it. Oh, it's women who do not have jobs who are reliant on these men. Oh, it's because men are quiet. Oh, it's because of, we tend to deal with the reasons in silos rather than seeing them as an entire comprehensive package of what causes violence. For an example, violence has become so normalized in our society. Every TV program now, every soapy has got a form of violence that is romanticized and put out there as though it is something that it is normal to be done. Even those have got to be condemned.